Welcome back to another Ask Dan Anything, and today we've got a question from my man Phil, and that question is, how do I deal with a toxic person who won't leave me alone and is trying to mess with my life? Great question, something that applies to all of us on a spectrum. Sometimes we have people who are really toxic in our lives, all the way through to people who are just unhelpful to have in our lives and not doing any good. First off, I want to speak to why you need to deal with this. A lot of us like to think of ourselves as independent, that we can somehow exist as a form independent of the influence of others. And this is categorically inaccurate. You are the summation of all the people you're influenced by. Everybody in your life changes you, affects you, rewrites the pathways in your brain just with their behavior. So you have to start with the assumption that whoever you have in your life in this moment is influencing you, and strongly, stronger than you believe they are. You know, there's this old kind of truism, you are a summary of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Psychologically, in terms of neuroscience, this is quite accurate. You are heavily influenced and you mirror the people you spend time with. And you know this. If you're around people who are happy, you generally get happy. You're around people who are miserable, you generally get miserable. You know the influence people have on you, despite your attempts to avoid it. So, you need to deal with the people who are toxic and who are destroying your psychology, because you cannot fight against it if they are stronger than you are. If you can't change their frame, they will change yours. And there are 7 billion people in the world. You don't need to be spending your time with these ones. First off is how to recognize it. How do I know when someone in my life is this kind of influence, when they're toxic? There are a few things I want to talk about. The main one is emotional aftermath. If after spending time with someone you feel emotionally drained, exhausted, anxious, confused, aggressive and defensive, and this is a consistent pattern, it always seems to happen either before or after you spend time with this particular person, odds are they're not a helpful influence on you. Anxiety is a huge one. If you feel worried about seeing them again, you feel worried about what they're thinking, you're worried about how they're going to act, you just worry about them a lot, there's a chance that they are a toxic influence on you. And then there's the compulsion obsession factor. You find yourself drawn into them, magnetized towards them, pulled into their world. These are the warning signs that somebody is manipulating you, that they've created a scenario where you feel stuck to them. It might seem totally rational, like, oh, well, they're suicidal, or they're having this huge problem that I created, I should fix it. And yet you notice this pattern over time, you just never seem to be able to get away from this person. They always pull you in with something. This is a warning sign. How do you deal with this? So you know what's happening, you feel awful, this person is not bringing any joy or love into your life, they're just dragging you down. How do you deal with it? First and foremost, you've got to have a confrontation, and maybe multiple confrontations, just to ensure that this is not something that can be easily solved with honesty. It could be the very reason that they're dragging you down is because you haven't been honest with them about how they're affecting you, and they may significantly change their behavior if you are. There are some people who I've had confrontations with, and they've really adapted to my needs, and I've gone from dreading seeing them to looking forward to seeing them. But this is rare. Usually for me, a confrontation is merely a test. Are they going to respect my boundaries? If not, I'm dealing with a toxic person. So after the confrontation, you need to measure behavior changes over a long period of time, not a week or a couple of weeks, but months, if you want to last this long. If somebody can go months with a significant behavioral change, then odds are they weren't a toxic person, they just needed some guidance and feedback. If, however, within a few weeks they go back to being the way they were, and you confront them again, they still slip back, you know you're dealing with somebody who doesn't actually want to change to respect your boundaries. Now comes the hard part. In my experience, I've dealt with a lot of toxic people through my work and through my personal life. In my experience, I've found there is only one effective way to deal with them if a confrontation doesn't work, and that is to completely ghost them. It is to cut them out of your life as brutally and ruthlessly as possible, to make it impossible for them to be in your life. This means sometimes it might mean changing your phone number. Most of the time it simply means completely ignoring their existence. Never replying to a text, never saying yes to an invitation, never spending any time on them, with them whatsoever. Every single little bit you give them feeds them. You've got to understand that even telling them to leave you alone is a response. They will use that response to further drag you into their world. They need you to respond in order to have that toxic effect on you. And this is where it gets really difficult, because some people who are like this, their response will be, their attempt to get a response will be a suicidal threat. Now, it doesn't mean you can just ignore it, because some people will follow through on that threat. But it's not your job to deal with it. Call the authorities. Send the police around to your house. Make sure that they know that any attempt to drag you into the world will be a big hassle for them, and that they can't threaten you, that you're not going to allow a threat to remain secret. If they try to blackmail you, if they threaten to backtalk you to your work or anything like that, go and talk to all these people and say, look, I'm getting these threats, you should know about them. Make sure everybody knows who this person is in your life and the toxic influence they're having, and never respond to them. From their perspective, it should be like you've died. There's zero evidence of your life. And that's the only way to deal with them. If you need any help with developing the courage to do that, I suggest you grab a copy of my book, Nothing to Lose. I talk a little bit about breaking that down in that book. And most importantly, talk to your friends and family. Get third-party perspective. Describe the other person to them and see, do the other people think they're toxic? Really get that influence. But bear in mind that great manipulators will make it look like they're covered in gold while you're covered in shit. So sometimes you just got to do this one on your own and trust yourself. So I hope that helps. Get in touch with me if you have any questions like this for yourself. dan@brojo.co.nz. Of course, if you want coaching to go deep on these kind of things, I'm available for that too. And I'll see you guys next time.